Hello, welcome. My name is Jeremy Sims. I really enjoy teaching the Bible, and here recently we've been going through Jeremiah. We're looking at Jeremiah 2, verses 20 through, where are we going today? I think verse 37 is where the chapter ends, to the end of the chapter, wherever that may be. And in this section, we're going to find out some stuff about really God kind of just going off on Judah. He's been kind of slowly building his case in the last couple of chapters, or not the last couple of chapters, but the last couple of videos we did earlier in chapter 2. Well, back up to Jeremiah 1, we see God calling Jeremiah, basically saying, Judah is coming under condemnation, deliver this message for me. In chapter 2, he starts saying, hey, what have I done to wrong you? What's your case against me? He's saying, trying to get them to rationalize their irrational betrayal of him. And then God starts building his case against them, saying, you've turned your back on the fountain of living waters, which, is referring to God in some sense. And you've hewed out your own broken cisterns, which is putting, human effort into trying to find inferior replacements for God. So yeah, this is kind of what we see in the earlier part of this chapter, and God just builds out this case that Judah had continually gone after everything except him for their prosperity, even though he was the one who gave them prosperity in the first place. And here we're going to see God really just begin to kind of go off on them, and there's a lot of horror talk, honestly. Woe and horror talk is disaster is all very big in Jeremiah. Non-stop horror talk. And you're going to get a bunch of that, and we're really going to just see God kind of tell them that, judgment is coming, and that they don't have any excuse for it, is what we have coming up here. So let's go ahead and read the entire thing. And I think I might have to get myself a cough drop or something, because I feel like my voice is about to fail me. I've been kind of sick the last couple of days, and just really quite a decent cold here. So forgive me if I sound funny, and if I make any mistakes, I'm going to blame it on that as well. Don't have time to edit out stuff, so you're going to get... I'm trying to minimize edits here, so if I'm a little clunky, please forgive me. All right, so we're going to read verses 20 to the end of the chapter, and then we're going to come back and take it in smaller chunks, little by little. So, verse 20. For long ago I broke your yoke and burst your bonds, but you said, I will not serve. Yes, on every high hill and under every green tree you bowed down like a whore. Yet I planted you a choice vine, wholly of pure seed. How then have you turned degenerate and become a wild vine? Though you wash yourself with lye and use much soap, the stain of your guilt is still before me, declares the Lord God. How can you say, I am not unclean, I have not gone after the Baals? Look at your way in the valley, know what you have done. A restless young camel running here and there, a wild donkey used to the wilderness. In her heat, sniffing the wind. Who can restrain her lust? None who seek her need weary themselves. In her month they will find her. Keep your feet from going unshod, and your throat from thirst. But you said, It is hopeless, for I have loved foreigners, and after them I will go. As a thief is shamed when caught, so the house of Israel shall be shamed. They, their kings, their officials, their priests, and their prophets, who say to a tree, You are my father, and to a stone, You gave me birth. For they have turned their back to me, and not their face. But in the time of their trouble they say, Arise and save us. But where are your gods, that you made for yourself? Let them arise if they can save you, in your time of trouble. For as many as your cities are your gods, O Judah. Why do you contend with me? You have all transgressed against me, declared the Lord. In vain have I struck your children. They took no correction. Your own sword devoured your prophets like a ravening lion. And you, O generation, behold the word of the Lord. Have I been a wilderness to Israel, or a land of thick darkness? Why then do my people say, We are free, we will come to you no more to you? Can a virgin forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? Yet my people have forgotten me days without number. How well you direct your course to seek love, so that even to wicked women you have taught your ways. Also on your skirts is found the lifeblood of the guiltless poor. You did not find them breaking in, yet in spite of all these things, you say, I am innocent. Surely his anger has turned from me. Behold, I will bring you to judgment for saying, I have not sinned. How much you go about changing your way! You shall be put to shame by Egypt, as you were put to shame by Assyria. From it too you will Come away, with your hands on your head, for the Lord has rejected those in whom you trust, and you will not prosper by them. Let's see, let me make sure I'm actually recording here. I am, yay. I had a very long video I made the other day, and the recording stopped after 10 minutes, so I am paranoid now. By the way, I think I maybe forgot to mention it. What I really like doing is I like trying to find things in the Bible that most people haven't seen before, and just kind of share that with people. So if that's what you're interested in too, then this should be your cup of tea. I should have said that at the beginning. I guess, should we read this whole section again? Let's go 20 through 25 again, just to get in our head, and we'll start breaking it down. For long ago I broke your yoke and burst your bonds, but you said, I will not serve. Yes, on every high hill and under every green tree you bowed down like a whore. Yet I planted you a choice vine, wholly of pure seed. How then have you turned degenerate and become a wild vine? Though you wash yourself with lye and use much soap, the stain of your guilt is still before me, declares the Lord God. How can you say, I am not unclean, I have not gone after the Baals? Look at your way in the valley, know what you have done. A restless young camel running here and there, a wild donkey used to the wilderness, in her heat sniffing the wind. Who can restrain her lust? None who seek her need weary themselves. In her month they will find her. Keep your feet from going unshod, and your throat from thirst. But you said, it is hopeless, for I have loved foreigners, and after them I will go. So, boy, where do we even start? So, broke your yoke. Let's go there. For long ago I broke your yoke and burst your bonds. So, I am no Hebrew expert. I don't know anything about Hebrew, really, but I can read commentaries and have a concordance. And I can see that there's a weird translation thing happening here because the different versions of the Bible translate this differently. For long ago, I broke your yoke. A lot of versions translate this as long ago, or something along those lines, you broke your yoke. So there don't seem to be as many words in Hebrew as there are in English, and so if we look at verse 20, I can pull this up on my little app actually. For basically we have old time broken yoke. It doesn't really say who broke the yoke, whether it was I or you, which in this case would mean Judah broke the yoke or God broke the yoke. So it's not clear whether it's saying, for long ago I broke your yoke, meaning I freed you from slavery, and now, but I want you to be my servant, or if it's saying, I want you to act as my servant, but you've broken your own yoke. You're broken away like an animal that was meant to, plow a field or something that's broken out of its yoke and is gone crazy. So yeah, it's not clear which way it means. The ESV, which is what I'm using here, takes the translation, goes with the I broke your yoke and burst your bonds. So it's the idea of, I freed you, but then I wanted you to serve me as a willing servant. Or as other translations will take it as, like you were already hooked up to a plow or something and you've broken free, and now you won't serve me. Anyway, neither here nor there, I suppose, but kind of interesting. And depending what version you're reading with, you might notice that being a little odd. For long ago I broke your yoke and burst your bonds, but you said, I will not serve. Just that refusal, hey, I'm not serving you. Yes, on every high hill and every green tree, you bowed down like a whore. This is so stinking harsh. I'm glad when we talked about this with small group that the other people also laughed about this, because I guess it's just such an inappropriate thing to say, and it's thought of as a very not nice thing to say these days. I'm sure it wasn't thought of a nice thing to say in those days either, but it feels so strange hearing God call people a whore. Yeah, but so yeah, I kind of always chuckle about it. It's a serious thing, but it's just kind of like, wow, God's really coming pretty hard here. And also I think I don't think it's any coincidence that it says, you will not serve, and then it's kind of like basically saying, well, you'll serve something. You're not going to bow down for me, but you'll bow down as a whore and service, your male customers. So yeah, one of the thoughts that came to my mind from this is like, you wouldn't want to get in a rap battle with God. He would come pretty hard at you, and he would win. He and Jeremiah here have quite a way with words, I think. Yes, on every high hill and every under every green tree. So it's like you're doing it in public. And of course, it's not any coincidence that we use these high hills and green trees. Um, let's see, where am I at? Okay, so let's elaborate on that in case you don't know. 1 Kings 14. This is giving context to the high hills and the green trees. Now Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old, and he began to reign. And he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city of the Lord, had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. His mother's name was Naamah the Amorite. And Judah did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins that they committed, more than all the fathers had done. For they also built for themselves high places and pillars, and Asherim on every high hill and under every green tree. And there were also male cult prostitutes in the land. They did according to all the abominations of the land that the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. So we see that this every high hill and every green tree, this is where they were putting all the altars to the false gods. You know, the high places these are the high hills is also called the high places. Basically, every city would have, you know, the peak would be kind of where you'd put the altars to the false gods, which probably the idea, usually gods, not just Yahweh, but false gods as well, are associated with mountains or high hills. Think of like the Olympian, Mount Olympus for the Olympian gods, the Greek gods. You know, it's sort of the idea of like where the earth connects with the sky. So it's the highest place to the heavens where gods are often considered to be, or a place of plentifulness, of fruitfulness. So that's why you'd see them in the groves or gardens. So that's where they decided to worship their gods. So, you know, here Jeremiah is painting a visual, very blunt metaphor of them acting like prostitutes under every high hill and under every green tree, but these are the places where they were worshiping the false gods. Let's see, anything else in that section? It's just kind of graphic. I can't imagine this being taught in clearly, this entire section specifically in the church I grew up in. It feels like something they would have to want to caveat quite a bit. And I think maybe many churches would be uncomfortable with that. I kind of mentioned this in small group occasionally. I'll mention, you know, like I talked about circumcision last time, and some ideas of why that might be. And I just talk about things frankly. I got the impression some of the people might be like a little, oh, he's kind of talking about stuff a little. It's kind of interesting how the Bible talks about things that we don't want to, that culturally we are not necessarily comfortable discussing with in church, which seems to be a problem with our culture in church, not the Bible. Yet I planted you a choice vine, wholly of pure seed. How then have you turned degenerate and become a wild vine? I didn't actually look this up in particular, but I know there are other places that use this metaphor of the vine, so maybe if somebody wants to spend some time on that, maybe that's something you could do at some point. But he's clearly saying, you know, I planted like the best thing here, and now you've become really messed up. What happened? Verse 22, though you wash yourself with lye and use much soap, the stain of your guilt is before me, declares the Lord God. Just this idea of you're not going to be able to wash your sin off of you, your uncleanness. This is bad. Specifically lye, I don't know enough about lye soap, but I know some forms of lye are really abrasive and can actually burn the skin. I don't know if that's what they're talking about here, but if so, that would be a strong visual metaphor. Like even if you want to use this really harsh stuff, you still can't get clean from your wickedness. Verse 23, how can you say, I'm not unclean, I have not gone after the Baals? So, lots of things here. First of all, and this is something that blows my mind, but you'll see it coming up over and over again in the section we're reading today. They seem to be saying, oh, we haven't really done anything wrong. We haven't really gone after false gods. We're not unclean. And my gut instinct is to say, okay, this is exaggeration. This is, they don't actually think this. They're just, God's exaggerating or they're pretending, but God keeps on mentioning it over and over again that as if they genuinely don't think they're doing wrong, and I think that probably actually is the case. I think they probably fooled themselves. And as silly as that sounds, then I think about, well, for instance, it made me think of a story a friend told me a long time ago, that supposedly teenage girls, even if they have access to birth control, if they're having sex, will tend to not take birth control because they say if they take birth control, then that means they're admitting that they're having sex. And I don't know what study he's referring to. Supposedly it was based on some study. And I remember he told me that, and I thought it was nonsensical and ridiculous and wasn't true. And I don't know the study. Maybe it is nonsensical and not true. But as I've grown older, I've come to think, yeah, that probably actually was true. Because even though it's ridiculous, people are ridiculous. They act in illogical ways a lot of times. And I think we all have this like cognitive dissonance where we like to fool ourselves, right? Because we can look at, oh, how stupid is Judah? They're doing all these acts of worship. They have high places in every town worshiping these false gods. And yet they're saying, oh, well, we didn't do that. But don't we do that? Don't you and I do that ourselves? Certainly I've done that where I've been like, oh, it's not that big a deal, oh, I just do this every once in a while. It's not that big of a sin. Oh man, I've been having a lot of trouble with overeating here recently. That's a big one. And every time I do, I'm like, oh, just this once. It's not that big a deal. I'm pre-diabetic. I don't need to be eating hardly any sugars or hardly any carby things. And I mean, for a couple weeks, it's been almost every day. I'm like, oh, this will be the exception. And every meal is an exception, and I'm going to kill myself if I don't stop. So, we have this way of rationalizing and tricking ourselves, and it seems like Judah had done the same here. We really need to be introspective and honest with ourselves. Are we lying to ourselves about our own sin and our state of our heart? And I'm working on that. I have been trying to repent on that because I have been out of control here recently. How can you say, I am not unclean? I've not gone after the Baals. So kind of weird that Baals is plural, unless you watched the last video, or maybe it's 2 videos ago now. In which case I pointed out that Baal is a specific deity, and it's a name for deities in general. So there is the Baal, which is a specific fertility god, and then there are lots of Baals, which are other gods, because Baal just literally means Lord. So just like we would say, just like the Bible says, there is the God. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm sick. Just like we would say there is the God, and then there is, there are other false gods. Same thing as like God, Lord, Baal is a specific deity, and then Baals are other ones. And just kind of for fun, I looked up some of these Baals. So here's some stuff I copied from I have no idea where. Several deities bore the title Baal, and more than one goddess bore the title Baalet, or Baalat. Biblical references for Baals associated with various places include Baal Hazor, Baal Hermon, Baal Hanan, Baal Peor, Baal Pazim, Baal Shalisha, Baal Tamar, Baal Savan, and others. Beelzebub means Lord of the Flies, or Lord of the Flyers. I'm sure you're familiar with that. So, yeah, Anyway, so they had not only gone after one Baal, they had gone after lots of false gods, lots of Baals. In fact, some people suggested, well, I'll come back to that later. What else? And speaking of going back to the idea of them denying that they were going after false gods, in some senses, they kind of gave themselves a little wiggle room. They might have, I don't know why they said they haven't gone after false gods, but maybe they're thinking, well, we still have Yahweh, we still have the temple, we still have the Ark of the Covenant, we're still all about that. We still do stuff in sacrifices to Yahweh. It's cool. But they had all these false gods as well. They were not being faithful to the true God. So that might have been something that was kind of in their head. How can you say, I'm not unclean, I've not gone after the Baals? Look at your way in the valley. Know what you have done. And I think the valley, I didn't find the real specifics on it, but I think there was a specific valley where they did some of their sacrifices, including child sacrifices and worship to false gods. but I did not find that specifically. I think that's what's being referred to there. Look at your way in the valley, know what you have done. A restless young camel running here and there. A wild donkey used to the wilderness, in her heat sniffing the wind. Who can restrain her lust? And this is another one where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so graphic. Restless young camel running here and there. The camels were very quick. They were known to be very fast, so that seems to be the idea there. They could run it. They can run at 40 miles per hour. A wild donkey used to the wilderness in her heat sniffing the wind. So wild donkeys would go around sniffing the wind, and they were looking for pee, because the male donkeys will pee on things, and when they find one, they'll just go into like a crazy little and start freaking out and run away from whoever they're with to go try to find the male so they can have sex. So, who can restrain her lusts? it's it's just really graphic. Now, if you'll remember, if you watched my previous videos back in verse 4, says, "What wrong did your fathers find in me, that they went far from me, went after worthlessness and became worthless?" Well, now we're getting the answer to that. It wasn't really anything they found wrong with Yahweh. It was just they were lustful. They were wanting to go after their lusts. We get this very graphically represented with the donkey metaphor. None who seek her need weary themselves. None who seek her need weary themselves. In her month they will find her. So when she's in her heat, she'll find you. That's how much of a whore Judah had been. They would just run after all these false gods. Kind of a funny way to put it, but oof. Keep your feet from going unshod and your throat from thirst. So apparently there is some idea. There are two ways to take this section. It's very weird at first. Keep your feet from going unshod and your throat from thirst. Some people suggest it has something to do with a specific offering to false gods, taking your shoes off, and to worship the false gods. I don't know where the thirst would come into things. However, what probably is a more accurate thing is tying into this idea of like, you don't need to weary yourself to try to find her. None, if we go back to 24 again, none who seek her need weary themselves. In her month they will find her. Keep your feet from going unshod and your throat from thirst. Feet from being, that means don't bother putting on your shoes, or or make yourself thirsty running after her, because she's going to come to you. Seems to be the idea. So anyway, all these very harsh condemnations, and what does Judah have to say for herself? But you said, "It is hopeless, for I have loved foreigners, and after them I will go." That's it's sad, but I think, I can relate to that. I've felt that way. I've turned my back on God before and kind of said, "Well, you know what? It's hopeless. These are the desires I have. These are the lusts I have. These are the problems I have, and I'm just going to keep going this direction." It's not a good thing. It doesn't work out well. Anything else in this section? I think that's it. Verse 26. As the thief is shamed when caught, so the house of Israel shall be shamed. They, their kings, their officials, their priests, and their prophets, who say to a tree, "You are my father," and to a stone, "You gave me birth." For they have turned their back on me, not their face. But in their time of trouble they say, "Arise and save us." But where are your gods that you made for yourself? Let them arise if they can save you in your time of trouble. For as many as your cities are your gods, O Judah. So again, this is kind of so bitter, and I don't know. It's a little mean spirited, I think. It's kind of the impression I get from it. I think God's really just telling them off. So verse 26, as the thief is shamed when caught, so the house of Israel shall be shamed. So, interesting question. How is a thief shamed when caught? Or what sort of shame does a thief feel? Well, the sense of shame they get when they're caught, right? After all, if they were super feeling shamed about it before, they probably wouldn't be doing it, right? So it's just like the, "Oh, you caught me" sort of thing, I think is the idea here. You feel really bad, but not until then. It's not a repentant sort of shame. So the house of Israel shall be shamed. They, their kings, their officials, their priests, and their prophets. Yet remember, this is Jeremiah's probably his first public declaration to the world, his first public sermon. And oh my goodness, he is hurting everybody, or he's not hurting everybody, but he's attacking all the powerful people, the kings, the officials, the priests, the prophets. If we go back to Jeremiah 1, remember God said, I'll deliver you. And we think of how, he didn't get delivered from a lot of problems. So what does that mean? Well, the fact that he didn't die is pretty spectacular, considering he's angering all the powers that be in the nation, right? For they have turned their back on me and not, I missed some stuff. So the house of Israel shall be shamed, they, their kings, their officials, their priests, and their prophets, who say to a tree, you are my father, and to a stone, you gave me birth. Turn to these false gods as if they are the ones that provided for Judah. For they have turned their back on me and not their face. This rings true for me with children. My dad always says that you learn more from being a parent about how to interact with God than what you learn by being a child. He was very, very right. Not sure he said much. That's maybe one of the most true statements he said. Because it's hard not to go through reading much scripture without thinking, oh yeah, I felt that way about my daughter. For they have turned their back to me and not their face. I don't know how many times I've seen my daughter, Illyria, do something that was, like questionable. Like she grabbed her younger sister in a way that was kind of around the neck. And I'm like, oh no, we got to talk about that. So I'm like, come here, let's talk. And she's not even in trouble. I just need to explain, hey, you can't do that. Make sure you're aware of what you're doing wrong and just change. And she decides to turn her back towards me instead of her face. And if she would turn her face towards me, we'd get it worked out, we'd be good to go, we'd have fun times, but she turns her back towards me, and then it escalates, and she gets herself in more trouble. You've turned your back to me and not their face. She just sometimes pretends like she doesn't hear me, too, same thing. It never works out well, it's not a good thing. But in the time of their trouble, they say, arise and save us. So here God says, oh, you're acting this way. You act like you don't even want to acknowledge I'm there. But then when you want help, but where are your gods that you made for yourself? Let them arise if they can save you in your time of trouble. Mocking, bitter. For as many as your cities are your gods, O Judah. This was probably literally true. There were probably literally gods for every single city. Some people said as many as 30,000 possibly idols, false gods go at this time. Let's see, that was pretty. Is there anything else to talk about through this section? Give me a second to look over my notes. I'm sorry. No, this isn't the most entertaining thing. One thing I did take notes on was just the idea of a thief is shamed when caught, so the house of Israel shall be shamed, they, their kings, their officials, their priests, their prophets. It just brought to mind the teachings in the Bible that those in positions of leadership or teachers will be in greater condemnation. James 3:1, not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. And Luke 12:48, everyone to whom much is given, of him much will be required. And from him, to whom they entrusted much, they will demand the more. So it just comes to mind, these people, God calls out these leaders of Judah in particular, and it's not going to be bueno for them. And something to keep in mind in our own lives, too, because, if you're a United States citizen, you have so much wealth. We're at the most richest time in the world, and the richest nation in the world, and if we I don't think God's going to be impressed if we get to heaven and tell him about how many, trophies we unlocked on Xbox, or how many comic books we collected, or how many Netflix shows we binged. So, keep that in mind. I think that's it. God's really getting after him on this. Verse 29, why do you contend with me? You have all transgressed against me, declares the Lord. In vain have I struck your children. They took no correction. For your own sword devoured your prophets like a ravening lion. And you, O generation, behold the word of the Lord. Have I been a wilderness to Israel, or a land of thick darkness? Why then do my people say, we are free, we will come no more to you? Can a virgin forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? Yet my people have forgotten me, days without number. So, verse 29, why do you contend with me? It's like, why are you messing with me? Why are you trying me? Why are you doing this? You've all transgressed against me. It's like you're coming after me, and you guys are the ones at fault. Again, that contend word is like the idea of grappling. It's not good. The kind of struggle, but they're struggling not in a holy way. They're struggling in a rebellious way. In vain have I struck your children; they took no correction. Again, some sympathy I feel that with that as a parent. Your own sword devoured your prophets like a ravening lion. Again, we see why Jeremiah needed, even though he didn't get delivered from lots of troubles, at least he didn't get slain, at least before he was able to deliver his messages, which apparently a very common thing at the time. And you, O generation, behold the word of the Lord. Have I been a wilderness to Israel, or a land of thick darkness? Yeah, I think that's self-explanatory. Why then did my people say, we are free, we will come no more to you? Free, God's played with the metaphors of slave, he's played with the metaphor of a wife, and I kind of wonder which one is being brought to mind here, because you'd be like freed as in divorced or whatever. Not real clear. We are free, we will come no more to you. Or either way, it's that idea of like, I don't owe you anything, is the way Judah is speaking to God. And considering that maybe it is more in a wife sense, kind of like in a divorce, or I'm free from my husband, because it goes immediately into something more akin to that. Can a virgin forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? So virgin for getting her ornaments, this seems to be, ornaments just seem to be like, I guess, accessories, makeup, and necklaces, and jewelry, and all that sort of stuff. Or a bride her attire. Apparently, back in these days, there was an actual sash that women would wear to indicate that they were married. And of course, people wanted to wear that. So the idea here seems to be, can a virgin forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? These are things that women are naturally drawn to. Women naturally want to, generally speaking, present an image of beauty to the world, and these are things, and they're proud of their relationships and their marriage, and that's something to be celebrated. They don't want to hide that; they want to celebrate it, to bring it to the forefront. Yet my people have forgotten me, days without number. So, it's as if these women have this natural desire to present themselves in a certain way. I'm not articulating this well, but I think the contrast is in natural desires. Like your natural desires is to make yourself beautiful and to show off your relationship. But my people are just completely ignoring me. They're completely turning their back on me. You're doing what is unnatural, I think is what he's suggesting here. I think my voice is getting lower and lower and growlier as I go. I hope this is good. I'm running my voice for you. Somebody appreciate this. Excuse me. Why do I have to be sick the one day I have time to catch up on these videos? It's very bad luck. All right, moving on. Or should I check my notes first to see if I missed anything worth pointing out? I don't think there's anything worth pointing out there. All right, so moving on. Almost done with this chapter. Woo! Verse 33. How well you direct your course to seek love, so that even to wicked women you have taught your ways. Also on your skirts is found the lifeblood of the guiltless poor. Yet you did not find them breaking in. Yet, in spite of all these things, you say, I am innocent. Surely his anger is turned away from me. Behold, I will bring you to judgment for saying, I have not sinned. How much you go away about changing your ways. You shall be put to shame by Egypt, as you were put to shame by Assyria. From it too you will come away with your hands on your head, for the Lord has rejected those in whom you trust, and you will not prosper by them. Oh, how, I just go, oh, because it's such a, I don't know, I find Jeremiah so powerful. How well you direct your course to seek love. The first thing that comes to my mind on this is just love is love. It feels like this, it feels like God's mocking them. Oh yeah, you're doing so well directing yourself to find love. Yeah, you're doing great. It's this artificial love. It's this gross idea of love. It's this lust, really. And same thing with the love is love. People say that as if that's meaningful when it's, irrelevant. Porcupines are porcupines. Shoes are shoes. Quadriblah is quadriblah. It means nothing. So yeah, it just comes to mind for me because it's like, it's this idea of the implication there is lifting my natural desires to the forefront, building my life around whatever my highest desire is necessarily good and right. And no, the Bible teaches our hearts are abundantly wicked, and lead us astray oftentimes. God is not it's about self-actualization in the sense of whatever we find in ourselves should be acted upon. He's about self-actualization in the sense that he created us for a certain purpose and wants us to live in accordance with that purpose and actualize what we are created to be, not necessarily what we feel like being all the time. There are many things in my heart and in yours that do need to be rejected. How well you direct your course to seek love, so that even to wicked women you have taught your ways. God said Israel was supposed to be a light to the nations, and here they are. Judah is teaching other people to be worse. It's so sad. It's no good. Also on your skirts is found the lifeblood of the guiltless poor. This strikes me as a very powerful image if you just picture like a skirt covered with blood of the guiltless poor. I'm not sure what exactly is being referenced here. It made me think about abortion because, as I said, I think there's a very close parallel, as I talked about in previous times, of the sacrifices they were doing to their lustful fertility god, the child sacrifices they were doing there, and the sacrifices we do today of killing our children in order to give ourselves a more prosperous life after we have our little sexual flings. So that comes to mind. I don't think that's probably what's being referenced here, but it came to mind for me, so I mentioned it. But yeah, I don't know what exactly is being referenced. The innocent blood. What we have in 2 Kings 21:16 might be what this is referencing. Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much. So we got innocent blood. Till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another, beside his sin wherewith he made Judah to sin, and doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. So yeah, what is there to say about that? There's that was one of the kings of Judah that really did a lot of damage, or apparently killed a bunch of innocent people. I'm not sure exactly why, but that's the record we have. Really interesting phrase coming up here. Also in your skirts is found the lifeblood of the guiltless poor. You did not find them breaking in. Yet in spite of all these things, you say, I'm innocent. You did not find them breaking in. That's a weird thing. And it might make you think of like breaking in as in, they're breaking into your home. They're being a threat to you, and therefore you have right to defense. I don't know if the Bible specifies them breaking into your house, but definitely the Bible is very much into the right to self-defense. So that's definitely one take on this, is you did not find them breaking in. And so, that would have been a claim of innocence. I killed somebody, but it was to defend myself. And lots of translations go with that. But, however, a lot of them also go with another translation. Let's see if I can find it real quick. The other translations go, also on your skirts is found lifeblood of the guiltless poor. I did not find them in secret search, or something like that. And it's kind of like, whoa, how did we go to you did not find them breaking into, I did not find them in secret search? Well, again, the yous and the I's, I say again, this was from the previous video, but there aren't as many words in Hebrew as there are in English. So a lot of times we're kind of guessing as to the context of who's being referenced, whether it's a you or an I that best fits in this situation. And I don't know Hebrew and can't tell you how the best way to determine that is. But that's why we can switch from a you to an I. As far as how we switch from a breaking into a secret search, which is really weird, two ideas that do not seem to be remotely related. However, actually there's a Hebrew word which literally just means breaking in or secret search. So breaking in, again, it seems to be that would be like, this wasn't in self-defense. However, if it's the other way, if it's I did not find this in secret search, then if we read it that way, also on your skirts is found lifeblood of the guiltless poor. I did not find this in secret search. That would suggest that God's saying in that case, if that's the correct translation here. That would suggest that God's saying, this wasn't hard to find. It's not like these were murders happening in secret. This was happening in open, in which case, the community would have a responsibility to condemn it and try to stop that. God's saying this is like condemning all of you because you all knew about it. Almost done. Also on your skirt is found the lifeblood of the guiltless poor. You did not find them breaking in, yet in spite of all these things, you say, I am innocent. Surely his anger is turned away from me. And just this naivety and unbelievable arrogance of not realizing how guilty they are. Behold, I will bring you to judgment for saying, I have not sinned. And here we have this idea of the thing that that really gets them in trouble is them lying about their own wicked status, their denial of their responsibility, their denial of their culpability, of their wrongness. If they would just repent, admit that they've done wrong, then they could find mercy, but they don't, and that stays true for us today too. A lot of people are going to be in hell because they're too prideful to admit that they screwed up. For saying I have not sinned, how much you go about changing your way, you shall be, I'm innocent, surely his anger is turned away from me. Behold, I will bring you to judgment for saying, I have not sinned. How much you go about changing your way, this seems to be suggesting perhaps changing alliances and stuff. It's a weird phrase, but that seems to be most people's takes on it. And it fits in with the context. You shall be put to shame by Egypt as you were put to shame by Assyria. So again, let's find these different alliances for my peace, for my security. From it too you will come away with your hands on your head, for the Lord has rejected those in whom you trust, and you will not prosper in them, by them. Yeah, so this hands on your head is an interesting image. It's not really something, I guess maybe we do that when we're upset. I guess maybe. I don't know if it's some cultural reference in particular. I thought Matthew Henry had an interesting take on this, and he said, those that will not lay their hand on their heart in godly sorrow, which works life, shall be made to lay their hands on their head for the sorrow of this world, which works death. Those that will not lay their hand on their heart in godly sorrow, which works life, shall be made to lay their hand on their head in the sorrow of the world, which works death. I thought that was a pretty good way of putting it. So, what do we see in this? I got a lot of stuff from this section. I mentioned quite a bit of it already. I think one of the things is that I think one of the big things is God's just removing all Judah's excuses. They were acting, somehow had managed to convince themselves that God wasn't really angry with them, that they were okay, that they hadn't really done wrong, and God's like, no, seriously, I'm mad at you. I am absolutely angry at you. And he I think he's taken away all their excuses off the table. Something else I see in here is I feel like there's a lesson about, you get what you're pursuing, knock on the door shall be open, seek and you shall find. I think that's a general principle, like kind of a piece of wisdom, and it's something that applies in many situations and applies here. I think these people had sought after murder, and they got murder. They had sought after, not wanting to hear from God, and eventually God is like, okay, you're not going to hear from me. They sought after false gods, and God's like, okay, turn to your false gods for salvation. There isn't this... if we continually turn away from God and pursue everything else, God will give us what we want, I think, many times, and it's not going to be pretty. Anything else to take from this? I think if we're just talking about what the main points is here, I think God's just trying to make it very clear you don't have an excuse. You are in the bad, and you're not getting yourself clean from this. And that's my big takeaway from it. So anyway, hope that was helpful to you. I'll continue when I have time with the next one, and I guess that's about it. I gotta find the right window. How long was this one? Oh, it's not too bad. Not too bad. All right, well, I'll catch you next time. Bye.